So hi, everyone. My name is Casey Lai. I am the founder and CEO of Promethium. Prior to this, I was actually president and COO of a data catalog company called Waterline Data, which is now part of Hitachi Vantara. Love doing startups, love bringing new innovative technologies to market. The rest of the team has a lot of cloud data management and analytics experience, coming from places like Oracle, Workday, Informatica, AWS, Microsoft, et cetera. And so we're really passionate about just solving problems in analytics and also in data management. And the main problem that we're tackling is one that I heard a lot when I was at my previous company, and that was, the business people just want to get data faster, right? And so everyone's heard of this term self-service analytics. And it's a little bit misleading because I think most people think of self-service analytics as like this really easy process where you ask a question and magically in a few minutes, everything's there, ready for you in Tableau, in Looker, in Power BI, whatever your BI tool is, and bam, you get the answer. But in order for that to happen, and the folks who actually are in the data management side of the house probably realize there's a lot of work that needs to happen, right, ahead of time, right? You got to go through a discovery process. You have to figure out where to find data across multiple data sources. And if the data isn't in the same data lake or data warehouse, you probably have to do an ETL and move the data. And then you probably move too much, so you have to verify what you need, what you don't need. Then if the data is across, multiple stuff, you have to figure out how to put them together. Then you have to do the prep process. Then before that, then you can get to the point where you can query and then visualize. And so when we talk to our customers, what they tell us is that this is just a very painful process that continuously happens that involves multiple teams of people using multiple tools from multiple vendors that oftentimes don't integrate with each other. And so it takes a long time, right, to actually be able to get through this process. And sometimes it could take up to 4 months. And so they ask, the question, well, how can we possibly be a data-driven organization if it takes 4 months for us to do this all the time? And that's the problem that we see happen time and time again. And you might ask, well, why the heck do we do this? Well, we do it today because, in order for a BI tool to work, right, you need a nice data set, right? In the old days, we called it a data cube or a data mart, but you basically need this nice data set where all the data is actually now put together nicely to talk to your BI tool. The problem is if you need something different, if you need to refresh the data, this process starts all over again, which becomes really painful. So we wanted to solve this problem, and I specifically wanted to solve this problem because I felt that while data catalogs were great from a discovery perspective, it still didn't do all the other steps that you needed. And so we understand why you need this nice, perfect data set to talk to your BI tool, and we want to give you that capability, but we want to do it without moving data, right? And so you can have all the benefits of this cube or Mart or perfect data set to go into Tableau, your Power BI, your Looker, but you don't need to move the data. You can instantly refresh it, and you can actually get very granular answers. You don't need to say, I want to know all revenue by all products by all time. You can say, I want to know, hey, just the revenue for V6 engines made out of, aluminum, made from Mexico that was shipped to Michigan in spring of, 2019. So that's kind of the power of Promethium, is being able to do this and being able to have the ability to make these fast and granular changes and get the answers done literally in minutes. So the value that we bring to our customers is, before what used to take a 4-month process involving, a lot of different folks from data engineers and analysts and business, using a bunch of different tools from different vendors, we can give you one product where one person could actually get through the same process and create this nice data set or data cube to give to your BI tool in less than 3 minutes. So that's the problem that we're solving. And by doing this, organizations can now not only get through more projects from a BI perspective, but they can iterate a lot faster. Right? Because a lot of times with BI, you don't necessarily, just want to ask one question, or you don't necessarily know if that first question you ask is the final question. And so it's an iterative process. But if it takes you months or weeks or days to iterate, it's very hard to be agile. And so that's what we offer with Promethium, is the ability to get this very quickly. And so If you don't think you got the right answer, we'll try this combination, right? Okay, 2 minutes, you got it. Okay, this didn't look good, try this other combination. And so it really gives the iteration and the power to experiment, as well as the ability to kind of get answers very, very quickly, again, without the need to actually move the data, right? And so when you don't have to do the ETL, there's a lot of benefits, right? Number one, this is also a no-code platform, so you don't have to write any SQL if you don't want to. You can. We also have a section for you for the folks who are power users and really want to. But we also have built a product where you don't have to write any SQL. You don't need a lot of professional services, or actually you don't need any professional services to get started. Typical install takes about 30 minutes, and you don't need any pre-work. So you don't need to pre-define data models. You don't need to pre-tag things. You don't need to pre-built data sets and joins, etc. You can just connect us to your data sources, and we can go from there. So typically, customers can actually get, within 1 hour, they can install the product and start asking questions and start using the product to answer key questions. So a lot of customers are super excited about what we've had. A lot of people, have been trying to do this manually or cobbling things up with a lot of professional services. And so we're really solving a big problem here at Promethium. And I'd love to, show you guys the product a little bit more and kind of get into that. So before I do that, I just want to kind of address the architecture, because I'm sure there's going to be some of these questions. So I think it's just easier to talk about the architecture before we go right into the demo. So here, you see a sample customer's environment. And so they have data sources, and we support over 200 different data sources. So SaaS applications, anything that's RDBMS, anything that's NoSQL, anything that's HDFS based, anything that's S3 based, anything that's Hive based, we can actually support. And Promethium is a SaaS application, right? So there's nothing for you to manage from that perspective. However, we don't want to query your data over public IP. We don't want you to move data to us, right? So what we've done is, we've built what we call an intelligent edge, which is a container which we ask the customer to install in their VPC. And with this, the container does 3 things, right? One is there's a discover bot, which actually connects to the different data sources and pulls the metadata. 2 is if you want query access, we actually install a Presto cluster. We partner with Starburst. So the customer doesn't need to install anything, doesn't need to manage anything. We'll do it directly ourselves for you as part of a nice CloudFormation template. And then 3, while we can use your existing BI tool, and we encourage you to use your existing BI tool, some customers actually want to use Promethium's internal BI tool to be able to very quickly see the answers. And so if you do, we do package that up. We do offer it for you guys. The idea is not to compete with our partners, Looker, Tableau, Power BI. The idea is quickly get an answer and see, right, if you want to spend more time in Tableau and Looker to customize it, to, productionize that dashboard. But it gives you a quick way of, since you've now gone from the discovery of the data, the assembly, the prep, the query, you might as well be able to see very quickly what the output looks like, right? And that's why we actually offer basic visualization here. Okay. So that's the architecture of the product. Now we'll actually show you guys the product. Okay. I won't go through a couple of workflows, but here you can actually see, when you come into the product, a couple things. One is it's very easy to connect to different data sources, right? And when we connect, someone enters this information. It's usually someone from IT. You enter once, and when we connect, right, we'll not only just connect, but we'll also move the metadata over, as well as initiate the connection with the Presto cluster. That way, if you want to do queries, you can actually do that. And once it's done, it looks like all the data has actually moved into Promethium, but we actually have not moved any data at all. But you do get a single repository view of all the different tables, all the different files from all the different sources that you have. And so For example, I can say I really only want to see things in Snowflake, and I really want to see things in Oracle. I can just filter for that. And I could just search for something very easily, right? So I can just type in something I want to search for. Let's say I want to search for date. And it'll search across all the different data sources, and it'll tell you useful information, such as, hey, what's the name, what's the location, which vendor is it part of, but also tell you, has it been queried, how many times it's been queried, have you created answers with it, are there tags with it, and so, it gives the user an idea of, maybe, narrowing down which one they want to look at. And if you want to select, something to take a look at in more detail, you can simply just click on it, and you'll see, more information, right, at this point. So, I can see tags, right, that people have created at the table level. I could see, the columns, right, and, the specific column names. I could see the sampling of the values, and I could see tags at the column level, and I could add tags, right, so great data, right? So I can easily add a tag there. And if that's not enough, we can also show you a preview of the entire table as well. And notice we're able to give you sampling and preview without moving the data. So when I click this X, everything's gone. So there's no data stored, no data moved. So it's very secure. But you see how fast it is, right? If you need to see something, it looks like you have all the data that's already there. So you get the best of both worlds. And, while that's great, I think, being able to see the tags, being able to see the actual data, the other thing that's very helpful is actually seeing the questions that people have asked using that particular table, because it actually gives you a nice semantic understanding of what this data actually means. So for example, right, I have two tables here. They're exactly the same name. They're in different locations, and I could see that same number of columns, similar number of tags, but the one from Oracle has been queried a lot more than the one from Snowflake. And also, if I click on the one from Snowflake, I see that it's a different question, right? This one is about the impact on subscription revenue based on cancellation reason and package types. And this one is actually based on, the question is, what is the revenue by agent by location? So it helps give you kind of these different types of context so that you can understand, oh, this is how it's actually being used, right? And so if I want to see kind of how it's actually being used, I can simply click on one of the questions, and we'll take you there. We'll actually take you to that question itself. And so here you can see, hey, this is a question that was asked, and you actually see there's two answers. So you can actually create multiple answers within Promethium, because sometimes marketing has a different answer, sales has a different answer, and you want to know. And underneath each answer, if you open it up, right, there are ways where you can see more detail, right? So in this case, I'll open it up, and I can see there's a dashboard here, right, that I can take a look at. And if I want to get more detail, right, I can actually click on the answer itself, and Promethium will show you how the answer was actually put together, okay? So let's take a look here. So I clicked on this, and it actually told me on the left-hand side, the tables that were actually used, right? Which one was the central table? What's the other table I used? How did I join it? I did a left join. And so there are these three tables. It showed me the group bys, and you can see the group bys in more detail here. You can also see the lineage here, and you can actually see the preview of the answers here, and you can see the visualization here as well. And you can edit the visualization. So let's say I don't want this to be a pie chart. I really wanted this to be a bar chart, right? So very easy for me to go ahead and change that, right? Or maybe I want to create a different visualization. I want to look at status, and I want to look at revenue, right? Active, inactive, right? Very easy, boom. Right, so it's very easy to actually, have the ability to actually answer the questions, but it's also very easy to create the dashboards that are associated with the questions, and then having all of that in one place, right? So what we offer at Promethium is now the ability to have in a single place all the questions that your business users have asked, right? Users can actually favorite questions. They can actually rate and review questions. You can say, I just only want to look at things that are my questions, or I only want to look at questions that have been answered. I only want to look at hot questions. So there's all sorts of ways that users can actually narrow down what they're looking for. They can say, I want to narrow down by questions that's only asked by a certain person. And so it's nice for the users to be able to come in here and just search, right, for any question that they're looking for, and being able to instantly see the answer, right? And if they need to, they can collaborate with the data team and say, hey, I didn't understand it. Tell me how you actually did it. Or if they're happy and they see the dashboard, right, of being able to see the answers associated with it, great. And then a data person could actually come in here, like maybe I'm new to an organization and someone has left, but I can now come in here and I can see, what my predecessor actually did in terms of answering this question, which oftentimes happens a lot because when people move from organization to organization, they don't know what the other person actually did. And so the nice part about this is, Promethium will actually show you, right, what data was used, where it came from, how it was assembled, the preview. We even show you the SQL that's automatically generated as well. So that way, if people want to take this, make modifications, copy it, go to Tableau, go to other BI tools, they can easily do that. And so what's nice about this is, not only have we automated the entire process, which I'll actually show you by creating a question, but you have now something that's richer, much richer than a traditional catalog, right? You have more than just the data and the tags, right? You actually now know the assembly directions. You actually now know the answers that also come along with it, and you actually know, the context, right? What question was it associated with, and you can see who asked it. You can see how popular it is. So all these things actually, make it a much richer, more interactive, and more collaborative experience, all designed to not only help people get the data, the answers much faster, but help them find the more relevant answers much faster, right? Okay, so now I'm going to show you that I didn't have to do any pre-work. So we're actually going to create a question from scratch, and I'm going to select this one. I'm going to make sure that you guys don't think I spent all night here building this, and so it's already nice pre-built, right? So this is the question, right? What is the impact on revenue subscription based on cancellation and package types? So here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to delete this. Okay, so it's gone. And so what I normally would do if I was a business user is I'd come in, right? I'd ask that question. And the first thing we'll do is we'll say, hey, do we find similar questions? That way it helps avoid the work that you have to do if someone's already asked a similar question. In this case, there isn't. So I'm going to request my data team, can you please answer this for me? And as a business user, I'm done, right? I can copy this, I can Slack someone, email someone, but I'm done. And my data team is going to get an alert saying, someone has now requested this. Can you come in here and answer the question? And so as a data analyst, right now I'm logged in as a super admin, so I can't see everything. But as a data analyst, you would come in, and the first thing you would do is you would say, hey, Promethium, can you help me do a search on what data I need to be able to answer this question? And so one of the things you can see here is we automatically created tags to help you with the search. And you can actually modify this, right? So for example, maybe I want to make this simple. I'll just look at reason, revenue, cancellation package, and subscription. And I'm going to go ahead and select add answer. And from here, Promethium is going to look through the entire universe or enterprise of data sources you connected us to. So there's stuff in Salesforce, there's stuff in S3 buckets, there's stuff in Snowflake, there's stuff in MySQL, there's stuff in Oracle. But we're going to do a page rank, if you will, right? So this is using our own AI to kind of rank and figure out for you where we think the best location for the data is and why. And so if you hover over this, you'll see, hey, this table has information on subscription, call reason, deactivation code. This one has information on package, revenue, This one has information on reason and cancellation. So there's a good chance that these three tables can actually answer the question. And again, if you don't trust us, right, you can always do what I did earlier, which is, I click on the table. I want to see where it came from. I want to see the tags. I want to see, the column names. I want to see the sample values, and I actually want to see the table itself. So you can absolutely do that. But let's say you trust Promethium, or say, hey, I'm going to go with it. Let's start building the question. And so you just have to start by selecting one table. Just give us a breadcrumb, if you will, and we'll take it from there and go through the process. So I've selected this first table. And the first thing that we're going to do is, we'll do a query against this table and show you the sample results here so you can actually see what it looks like. So I have 65 columns, right, 100 rows, and here's my results. And typically what I like to do, and everyone has their different way, but I like to do is, hey, maybe if I'm lazy, which I am, I want to see if I can answer the question with one table. And so if you notice, everything is really search-based in Promethium. So I'm going to search, right? Can I look for cancellation reasons? I don't have cancellation. I have some reason. Looks like I have some information on package, so that's great. But do I have information on revenue? I don't have information on revenue. So what that tells me is I probably need something on cancellation. I probably need something on revenue before I can answer this question. And so that's a hint for me to say, go and join another table, right? And, again, we'll automatically rank things that are, joinable for you. And so, you can look at this and say, okay, there's stuff in here on agent. Looks like I don't really need agent, but, what about this table? Hey, there's billings, there's revenue, right? And it looks like there's package information as well. So this might be a good one for me to join, but this one's actually from Snowflake, right? It's not Oracle, but that's okay because we actually have data virtualization capabilities. So as long as you want to pick it and Promethium is connected to that data source, we can actually do the join and query for you. And not only that, we'll automatically also suggest the join type for you if it's available. If it's not available, right, in this case, you can say, hey, go ahead and create your own, right? So, I can say, hey, okay, so Promethium suggested an outer join. And, let's see if I've got something here that I can join. It looks like I do, right? It looks like I can join plan ID, right? And plan ID, right? And I could change the different type of join operators. And, once I do this, Promethium will automatically do the join without moving the data. So that's the cool part is I now have this freedom and flexibility to essentially see what relationships I could have across, all the different data sources I've connected to in Promethium without having to move the data. Now, one thing I always like to do is when I do a join is I like to make sure there are null values, right? So I know that originally I had 65 columns, so I want to look at the last 10, right, when I actually did the join. And so far, so good. I don't have any null values. That's awesome, right? And so I've got revenue now, and if you remember, the other thing I really needed was, cancellation reason. So, I can just search for the word cancel, and it looks like, reason code is probably the best place that I actually have that. I've got cancellation here. And again, so everything is just, as you can search, we will give you the detail you need, right? And when I look at this table, I see sample values, voluntary, poor coverage. It's probably a decent shot that this is reason code. This is reason stuff that I need. And I can go ahead and just select it. And in this case, right, Promethium has actually gone beyond identifying just the join type. It's already identified the join key for me as well. So I don't even need to do that, right? So I just need to go with Promethium's recommendation. So now we're joining 2 Oracle tables and 1 Snowflake table. And at every step of the way, Promethium will always give you a preview. So that way you can always kind of go back and see, what happened the last time, what's the impact analysis. So now I went from 75 columns to 83 columns, right? And again, I always like to go back and, check to see there's no null values. That's fantastic. So it looks like I have most of the data, right? So I can try to, if I try to visualize this, right? I've got I've got reason, I've got different if I can spell, right? Different reason stuff that I have. And, you know, I have a whole bunch of measures that I can select as well. But one thing I noticed is I got some pretty ugly column names, right? So I want to make this much friendlier to the business user. So with Promethium, you can do some basic prep. So for example, you know, as a data analyst or data engineer, I probably, once I look at the data, or I'm probably somewhat familiar with it. So I can, for example, I noticed MER is probably revenue, but you know, nobody knows what MER is, and LEN is probably subscription term, but nobody knows what LEN means. So why do I make this a little bit easier for my business users? So let's do that. Let me type in MER. And I can just come in here and say, I'm going to change this to revenue without changing the original column name. The original column name will always be preserved. It will not be changed at the source. So that way you don't have to do any crazy MDM. And then the other one that we're looking for was LEN. And I'm going to call this term. So now I've gone ahead and made these changes. And so now going forward, I can search and I can plot by revenue and term. I don't have to use those esoteric terms, right? So once I do the preview, it will go and execute these changes. So that way I'll have the new tables, the new column names to use. It's pretty fast, it's done. And the last thing I might want to do is, I might want to do a group by, right? Just so my users don't have to look at all 83 columns. I might want to just give them something a little bit easier, right? And so we know that this one is about reason and package. So let me include a bunch of, things on reason that are here. And let me include some things on package that are here. And then let me just do an aggregation, right, on revenue. And notice I typed in revenue and it automatically found for me the original column name. So I didn't have to search for the original column name. And I could just make this something a little bit easier, say brand total. Great. So now I've done that. I'm going to add my group by. And the minute I do that, my lineage chart updates that I've done a group by operation. And so then I'm going to preview the data, right? Like I said, every step of the way, we will show you the actual preview results so that you can see, what changed the next time you did it. And so now we're only showing 5 columns out of the 83, right? And so the user can look at this. The user can say, hey, why don't I, take the SQL and that we've automatically generate for you. Let me go to Tableau with it, or not. You don't have to go to Tableau with it, or Power BI or Looker. Or I could say, before I do that, let me just take a look at it really quickly, right, to make sure it's okay. So, maybe I could say, let's look at a revenue by reasoning. Okay, great. That's what it looks like. Let me do another one where I want to see package and revenue. Right? Great, that's what it looks like. And then let me do another one where I want to see, maybe, package by, reason code type, right? By revenue, right? And let me group it by reason code type, right? And I don't like this as a chart, right? Maybe I want to turn this into a pie chart, right? And maybe I want to add, show some data labels. So, so you see how it's very easy for me to just create the different visualization here, and then I could go ahead and create a dashboard. So that way, next time someone asks this question or select this question, the answers are associated with it, right? So if I go back to this question, I should be able to, number one, I should be able to see this new question, right, based on the table that was added, what's the impact. So it's actually there, so that's great. And then number two, when someone comes here, right, they can actually go in and see the work immediately that we did. So that way the new data analyst or the new data engineer could immediately have one place to go to and show exactly what tables did you use, from where, how did you join them, how did you group them, what's the preview of the results, right? What's the visualization that was created? What's the SQL? So all in one place, it's here. Users can review and rate them. They can favorite them if they want. So, now you have something where the business users, right, can just come in, search for the question, get the answer, but the data user can also have all the details that they can share with other members of the team, all in one place. And so this really kind of makes the collaboration much simpler, but it also, as you can see, we created that data set, cube, whatever model you want to call it, in a matter of minutes. Right, we were able to do this, simply by using search, right, just typing for stuff, and so very quickly we're able to get that, answer it, and create something that we can now give the business teams to actually consume. So I'm going to stop here for a bit and see if there's any questions. Or Mike and Julie, do you want me to keep going? Let me know how you guys want to do it.
Yeah, well, we got a few questions queued up, Casey. If you want to spend a little bit of time on that, and then we can continue to dig in if you've got more functionality you want to show us. Okay, cool.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
Right. So the source one I love. One of our participants, Francesco, is a great friend of ours, and asks some great probing questions. So he said, "What is the secret? How did you crack the code that the tech giants cannot seem to accomplish?"
Well, there used to be this little number here at the bottom of the app that actually showed you what version of the product it was on. And I got the developers to take it out once we hit 250, because I thought it was kind of embarrassing that we failed 250 times. So Francesco, the short answer was there was a lot of trial and error. And having customers tell us, what are you thinking? You told, no, this makes no sense. But I think the other part that we did was, we figured out how to leverage, how to, number one, connect to all available data sources. So we built all the connectors to all available data sources. We figured out how to extract metadata efficiently, quickly, without causing a load. And then from there, a lot of the IP was based on the metadata, figuring out relationships, figuring out all the things you normally would do if the data was physically loaded into a single data warehouse, right? Mm-hmm. And so that gave us now, okay, I can now discover, I can now map things. And then the thing that we needed to do after that was, well, if I can map things and I know what things can join, the next thing logically you want to do is you want to query the data, right? Now, I make it sound like we were so smart, we figured it out. I'm not going to lie to you, Francesco. These are all customer-led things where customers say, well, now that you found it, now that you told me what can join, you got to help me query it. And so we had to figure out how to do data virtualization, and we were very lucky to find great partners, Starburst. So they were awesome folks that we got connected with, and it turned out that it was actually a really nice, match made in heaven, because, Starburst needs to know where your data is, and it needs to know the SQL, and we were able to automatically generate that. And so it was a very easy integration. And then once we had that, it was really about, doing the prep piece, right? And it was doing enough of the prep so that, you can answer the question. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, we don't have all the prep features that a full-blown prep tool like Trifacta has. But as you can see, it's enough, right? I can change column names, I can concatenate things, I can join, I can filter, I can union. It's enough for business people to get an answer. Mm-hmm. And then lastly was the visualization. Again, this was one I'll actually openly admit, I did not want to build a visualization, guys. I wanted to just go to Tableau, go to Looker, and call it a day. And every customer told us we needed to, just so that we could get something simple and that they could see before they went to Tableau and Looker.
So thank you for that explanation. So an observation I'm having is I did you a little bit of disservice with the positioning on the front end. I should have positioned your product to also be a really powerful enabler for self-service analytics, right? The other observation is you're covering a pretty wide life cycle of the analytic journey, if you will, right? From source to understanding the source and all that.
Yeah.
So who are your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I mean, most of the competitors are, you hire Accenture to come in here and cobble this up for you with, 8 different products, right? A catalog from this vendor, a prep tool from that vendor, 5 different BI tools, and 2 different virtualization tools, and 10 data lakes. So it's really, our competition is really kind of the custom work that you would have paid someone 18 months to do, and it may or may not work after 18 months. And so that's kind of who we initially would compete against, because we don't replace the data source, we don't replace the BI tool. Now, what's been interesting, Mike, over the last 6 months, the SIs have actually come back to us and say, it's not so bad. It's not as competitive as you think, because oftentimes we get brought in to do this work and we spend all this time doing it and the customers are unhappy with us. And that's not good for us, because we may not get renewed business. So now they're having conversations with us and say, Mr. Customer, why don't you use Promethium first? See what answers you want. And these are the answers. That will drive our decision on what pipeline to build for you. That will drive our decision on maybe what other catalog and governance tools that you would need. And the size of your data lake may not need to be so big. So it's actually kind of come around where we actually can be part of the SIs, but being at the beginning as opposed to at the very end.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is an incredible enabler there. And just hearing the fact that you used set-based design and set-based engineering to constantly whittle down and get to the product that you're at, where you said 200 failures. Well, I see that as 200 experiences where you're eliminating ideas. You're using lean agile approach. That's an incredible story there. All right, let me get another question.
Yes.
Integration partners, do you integrate with ThoughtSpot?
We do. So one of the things that I'm very proud of the team is the richness of the API layer at every step of the way, right? So on the discovery part, we can integrate with different catalogs, right? On the prep part, we can integrate with Trifacta, Paxata, anyone else. You can plug this into Microsoft Excel. You can plug it to any BI tool. And so basically, like with ThoughtSpot, anything that has a JDBC connector, right, we can integrate with them, for example. Or if there's a Presto connector, we can integrate with them as well. So we have a lot of flexibilities. And so we have some customers we're talking to where they love ThoughtSpot's visualization. They love Spot IQ, right? But it's a little hard with ThoughtSpot in the early days where you have to move everything over and pre-design the data model. And they would rather start with Promethium, right? Let me ask a question. Let me quickly build something together, and bam, that's the one I want. Let me just move that piece into ThoughtSpot and then do the Spot IQ from there. So it's actually a nice story from that perspective.
Yeah, it's a good front end enabler for use cases. I mean, I'm seeing the continuous innovation engine. It's like, I'm going to throw a question out. That's my new intake. You guys figure it out and come back with the answer. Yeah. Are you seeing? You mentioned Starburst and your partnership and leverage of their capabilities. So are you seeing a decent amount of data mesh kind of use cases where Promethium is part of the enabling stack?
I think the short answer is yes, the technology can be part of the stack. The longer answer is we often get brought in or more sucked in by people who are just trying to get answers quickly. And so that becomes like just the first use case, which is, it's usually with data teams that says, my backlog's too big. Business users are breathing down my neck. I need something like Promethium to very quickly, go. And then we've seen organizations where, when we build this product, we said, hey, we just want the business users to search for questions, ask for questions, and rate and review. But we've seen organizations that, your product is actually so easy to use. Can I give the building capability to my business users? Like some, not all of them, but some pretty decently sharp business analysts who, are still data savvy. And so that's where we're seeing kind of a lot of the adoption, some of the technologies there. But yeah, I mean, technically, yes. And I'd love to work with someone to kind of, get that use case going.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's your mechanism for getting to the lineage?
Yeah, so we any question you answer through Promethium, we generate the lineage. Now, if you already have lineage through existing data catalogs, for example, like we have like connectors to like Calibra or to Atlas that, we could bring them in. And so that way, when you're discovering data, for example, right, there might be, if there's available lineage, there'll be another column here and said, hey, here's some lineage you can check out. It'll be a link that you can then see in Calibra or whatever Informatica, the different tools that they have. It's my demo system, so I'm not connected to those tools right now. But having come from the catalog space, Mike, I can tell you, nobody has end-to-end lineage, unfortunately, because they can only do what they can touch and see. And so it was one of those that we kind of just had to focus as a startup and say, we're only going to do the lineage for the questions that we create, and anything else will integrate with your data catalog. And as long as they have it, we'll show it. But we didn't want to go too far into that, foray too far into that space.
Yeah. So you got some organic capability through the creation of a question that then turns into the answer and the lineage behind it, and you can bring stuff in.
Exactly. Yes.
And that question was from Anna. I'm going to pile onto that and ask, what are the mechanics for determining what's joinable when I'm trying to answer that question?
Yeah, so that's actually a lot of proprietary work that we've done, where we actually, look at a number of factors in our algorithm, everything from what it's called, what its data type is, sampling of the values, right? So the values look like the same type. If I say, hey, this is a date, this is a $sign, probably not a good way to do it. So, we have our own proprietary algorithm to do that. And then lastly is the human, right? When the human does something, we learn from it. So there's machine learning on the back end. So the first time, like when I first joined this table, right, I'm like, hey, I don't know, because no one has tried to join Oracle and Snowflake before. So that's why we built it the first time, right? Now that I've built it the first time, any question I now ask that involves these two tables will then automatically suggest, here's the key that you can join it by.
Awesome.
And so that's how we do it. And the speed at which we do it is what allows customers to say, well, let me try this out. If it didn't work, let me try this out. And let me see what the answer looks like with an inner join. Let me see what the answer looks like with an outer join. And very quickly, the business users can then determine this is the one they want. Yeah. So this is a bit of a paradigm shift, because in the traditional world, it's, I got to spend 4 months to really make sure it's the right one to give to the business user. And then you may still be wrong. In our world is, do it fast and let the business user tell you. Yep. Does it look right or wrong? And that feedback and the rating, the review, and so forth is going to then train the machine learning and say, this is probably the most common one, right? The one that you should use. Yeah.
So kind of dovetailing off that, Peter asked, is there some kind of cost optimizer that's being used during the joins, especially when I'm going across different kinds of technologies?
Absolutely. Thank you to our friends at Starburst. So we do use their cost-based optimizer SQL capability. So it's going to look for the most efficient resource utilization when it comes to doing those joins. And it's going to recommend that, and we take that recommendation and we automatically pass it through.
Okay, I've got one question I'm going to save towards the end, because it'll go back into demo mode. But there is a inquiry on the cost of the product. Everybody gets this question.
Yeah, so our licensing model is very simple. It's an annual subscription. There's only 3 components. There is a platform fee, and then there is a business user fee. And the business user is someone who's just going to ask questions, search for questions, and just explore. And then there's a power user, the guy that builds, right? The guy who puts together the data map, the lineage, the visualization, etc. Mm-hmm. And so that's it. Those are the only 3 components.
Okay. And is there what's the secret component behind the mapping of the column name versus the different data tags across the sources?
We actually have a patent on that. I don't think we've named it, but it is proprietary that we've done just from all the experience that we have into looking at it's more than one factor. Is the short answer. Is you have to look at several factors, and then come up with a deterministic algorithm on what's the right one, and then still save room for the machine learning, because at the end of the day, no matter what we suggest, the user, if they don't use it, it's not right. And so that is why, everything that we do is, usage becomes a big thing, right? So for example, even when I determine what my page rank is going to be, people can say, I want to put a different weighting on the number of answers. I want to put a different weighting on the number of queries, because at the end of the day, like, nothing tells me I've got it right or wrong than, something's been queried 44,000 times versus something's been queried 56 times. It just helps me kind of get a different sense of whether or not I should use it or not. And we can still be wrong, but at least it might get you, it's like a Yelp review, right? Just get you started in the right direction.
Gotcha. Yep. All right. And then PW asked if you could, he may have missed it, but could you show us how we would create and or edit a calculated metric?
Yeah, so that's going to be, right now, the way you would do that is you would go into the SQL Builder and do that. And then in our next release, we'll actually do the UI version of that, where you can do what's called create a custom function, right? So here, instead of just join filter group by, you'll have custom function that you can do. But right now, what people will do is they'll just go into the SQL editor from here, and then they'll do what they normally do, because the persona that would use this piece is usually like a data analyst, or someone that's a bit SQL savvy for this piece. Or what we find is, if it's a business user, they will stop here, and then they would send this to the data analyst or data engineer and say, hey, this is as far as I've got, right? Using the UI, I'm not a SQL guy, so can you do the rest for me, right? Yeah. This is what I need to do, right? But in the next version, we'll actually have the create custom function button here that you can then select that and then go from there.